9th day of December 2024. Hello. International Atomic Energy Agency is up to it again. When are we going to designate this bunch of terrorists as a terrorist organization anyway? As usual, they're claiming Fukushima never lost a single drop. Nothing got out. Yep. 7 votes is all we got at the beginning of the show. We've been doing for a decade. That's the world coming to. So for the last 30 days, I got a total of 3.7 thousand views. We're killing it again. Nuclear industry has no way of surviving an onslaught like that. So my video last night was 136.53 seconds. And today it's 137.01 seconds. We see all of our videos typically are 6 seconds longer. Lots of other live streams we're checking regularly doesn't do that. Whatever it ends on, that's what it... and this changes 12 hours later, right? There's a whole bunch of other little things, right? I can't share. Once my stream is finished, I can't share with my subscribers. That's blocked. That's turned off. Even though I have everything opened. Here we go. The IAEA, whoever the hell that is, it's a corporation, I know that much. With UN, which is 195 military, so that probably is not good. Team arrives in Japan for the third review. Japan, by the way, is the third biggest donor to the International Atomic Energy Agency. Out of 195 countries. There's a lot of people sucking up to the IAEA. Japan is the number 3. They got their nose up there. My apologies, everybody. We do this story a lot. We try to mix it up. Give it some... give it some pizzazz. I'm Dana. And you can call into these live shows. If you're foolish. If you're insane. If your life is so pathetic that you're here watching this, you can call in to the most important story in human history. At the big 709-589, we're in Canada. So no matter what she says, I'm going to apologize for you. 4406. All lines are currently open. Call now, boy. The lines are open. That's a joke. Nobody calls. April 21st, 2014, Tepco is unable to bring contaminated water issues. Now, I'm making fun of the pro-nuclear, not my regular viewers. I'm making fun of the pro-nuclear. You have every chance in the world to call in and give it to me. Just stick it up to Dana. Just stick it right to him on his show. We're killing it tonight. Some serious censorship tonight, is it? What have we got? 8 views? 8 likes and 9 viewers. It's a revolution. See, if you got more than 2, you know that, right? You're not allowed to have it at the International Atomic Energy Agency. So there's probably like 12 people in my show, but the big buggers are censoring me with the alphabet. Tepco, the utility which operates, which bankrupt, was nationalized right after. So they want you to blame Tepco instead of the nuclear industry, which is the reason we're in this. Because they shouldn't have built the nuclear plants in a spot where they have a 3,000-year legacy of massive tsunamis. You're 60 miles away from the tectonic plates. That's stupid. And you have 1,000 earthquakes there every year just on that side of the coast. Oh, yeah, let's put a big one right there. One of the biggest in the world right there. And then the prevailing winds blow to North America right away. So 4 or 5 days later, it's not safe to go outdoors for a couple of years. if ever. Tepco, the utility which operates the disease factory known as Fukushima, promised to treat all the contaminated water. They're going to treat it. They're the only people on the planet can do it, but Tepco, the Japs could do it. A goal that is now admitting will not be realized. March, what date on 2014? February? April. There are certain parts of the site we don't have full control. In other words, if you go there, you drop dead. Well, the homeless do. The nuclear industry is not going there. Nuclear scientists are not going there. The moody nuclear students in university, they're not going there. Tanks were built hastily to hold highly contaminated water. Highly. Not treated, not this, not that, not filtered, not tritium 3H, but highly contaminated water, which led to a variety of the leaks and related issues, like deaths. They're pouring water over the melted reactor core, allegedly, sucking up and putting it in the tanks. Now, if that's true, you can't walk past the tank, and you can't build any other tanks on site because the tank you filled up originally was so radioactive. It's like a sniper round within 1,000 feet, a direct sight. Which leads to a variety of leaks. And this is the cover story. And the cover story was there on day one. Highly contaminated water. That's the important part. The advanced. The triple advanced. The advanced. 2. Liquid processing system, ALPS, has yet to function reliably. That's April the 21st, 2014. That's 3 years later. The ALPS system wasn't working then? Really? And they don't even put the word nuclear plant there. They always do with that particular Japanese media. Instead, whenever it comes to nuclear, if it was a coal plant, it'd be coal. If it was an oil plant, it'd be oil. If it was a gas plant, you see gas there. But if it's a nuke plant, there's the N word. Never say nuclear, right? Your race says, because you said nuclear, Dana. To the nuclear industry, I probably am. So here was a professor of nuclear and quantum engineering at CAS, which is the government itself in South Korea. This was July the 13th, 2023, last year. It was the first time I heard the story, really. In English, anyway. Even though I translate everything out there, because that's what I do. 1.37 million tons of wastewater. Contaminated 1,000 tanks, right? Which they built all of them in 2013. Stored at Fukushima plant includes approximately 2.2 grams of tritium. Tritium, not even tritium 3H, Dana, no. Tritium. It was equal to throwing 3 grams of sugar into the ocean. So shut up. So there's 4 reactors that melted down. Here's 2 of them. At the top of each of them was 8 reactor cores and 2 fuel pools. So 4 fuel pools between the 2 buildings. With 32 reactor cores into it, and reactor 4 clearly is gone. Even today, they'll never acknowledge reactor 4 is gone. And they were doing maintenance, right? So when you're doing maintenance, you're changing the fuel. And you change maybe 1/4 of the fuel. Say 1/3 of the fuel. Let's be generous. And that's hot fuel that's left in the reactor, right? And they'll load it up with fresh fuel. Who knows? This specific combination. No two fuel rods are the same. They're like terracotta soldiers. They all got their own plutonium, uranium combination. They all produce their own insidious elixir of hell. February 11, 2013. New images from Fukushima Daiichi press tour. These images were released by the press pool and show the current conditions of Fukushima Daiichi. There's some flyover shots that shows the extent of the expansion around the plant of tanks and other storage. They didn't bother showing you that for some reason. Ever. By the way, we counted the tanks in the best pictures there. We only got 700, not 1,000. This is the ALPS system. Oh, she's pretty. Yeah, we know it's the ALPS system because it says it over there. ALPS decontamination system. All right. Okay, that's 2013. The accident happened in 2011. Wait a second. So what they said they poured over the reactors each day was equal to 3/8-inch garden hose, like you get at anybody's house, your parents, grandparents, your friends, your neighbors' houses, right? The 3/8 or a half-inch, say. Let's go overboard and call it a half-inch. Garden hoses. Split 4 ways, and each one, you got 1/4 of the garden hose, a 3/8 half-inch garden hose maybe. 1/4 of that is pissing on or dripping on this one. So you got 4 reactors that needs a quarter. Like normally a reactor needs 1 million gallons a minute, 4,500 tons a minute. Think about 4,500 one-ton pickup trucks going past you. You're stood up on the side of the road and there's 20 lanes wide. And you got 4,500 pickup trucks every minute. Gone right past you, right? Almost lightning speeds. But that's what they've been putting in the storage tanks, he said, it's equivalent to, it's 120 tons a day. That's what you get out of a garden hose. And there's no filtration system up to this point, period. Not that there's anything left after day 5. But let's go with their version of this is the picture from the story we're going to get to. Okay, so now this video I'm going to play we're going to play it a couple times because this is BBC. And there's only 2 times that we've seen people at Fukushima Reactor 4. BBC was one of them. This was 2013. We're going to play the rest of it in a moment. And the other time was 2013 when you had 4 medias working on top of the buildings. Journalists. They're not the only 4, right? But here's 4: Seth Dorn, CBS, BBC, Rupert Winfield Hayes, CNN, Anna Corrigan, and ABC, Cecilia Vega. Just a fraction of the media pretending they're at 150 feet above the stump to your left on television. So it meant all the media had to participate, all the universities had to participate because no one called them out. I made this picture a little 9 years ago. All right, so this first one, I'm stalling because I blow up laughing every time I see it.
As they grapple with how to dismantle the shattered reactors at Fukushima, engineers are now facing a fresh emergency.
That curse is so funny. Let me play this again without the volume. Let me put it on loop. Here we go. All right. So I'm going to cut the video there. This little clip, we've never seen this ever before anywhere else. This BBC is the only one that ever showed the clip. All right. Stops right there. All right. So what you're looking at is a fake picture. It's a fake video. It's a fake picture. It's the same as this one, right? Where the media is pretending they're 150 feet above that one. BBC stitched together this particular picture right after. This is day 2 or day 3 or something. Right alongside of it, on top of that, is reactor 3. That's what it looked like on the back side of it. And I'll show you how they got that. You should see that crane in that top picture up there. Just hang on, I'll move my big head up there. See that crane up there? Wait for it. That's it back there, right there. So it's that other side, right? Let me go back for 1 second. So the crane up right here. So this is 4 sides of reactor 4. Like anybody walks in there doesn't come back out, if they even make it that far in. Now, you can argue and say, well, Dana, they fixed it with liquid glass. And you're going to say, Dana, what the hell is liquid glass? It's a mixture of sawdust and newspaper. Fukushima reactor was plugged. Clearly, they plugged it with sawdust and right, and so you can't. It's very a schizophrenic type conversation because look how you got to get it all over the world in order to make it work. Bear with me. I got to put that back on again in a minute anyway. So let me show you this again. Like you got 4 meltdowns in a row. 4 buildings side by side have detonated. Ejected their... You know why you're not seeing no people there right now? Because it's a death zone, right? And then the media was out saying the tanks that... that's not it. Saying they fixed it with sawdust, what they call liquid glass. It was plugged with liquid glass. A mixture of sawdust and newspaper and concrete and liquid glass, Dana. Alrighty. If you insist. But a meltdown is something different. And so once it breaks down in that context and releases all the radiation, it's lethal doses everywhere. So even if you did have liquid glass that could do the job, nobody can get there to do it because it's instant death. Mari Yamaguchi, August 2013, 1,000 tanks. So they got one. Okay, so now I'm setting you up for the next part of that video. We've never seen anything like that before, where they had jimmied this green screen together, because there's a lot of those boiling water reactors. They're all the exact same design from General Electric, the same color scheme. They're 190 feet, 150 by 150 foot wide. Every facet of it is the exact same. There's 2 fuel pools at the top of each of the building. They're stuffed full of reactor cores because they don't have a repository. All right, so we're going to play the rest of the video. It's BBC, Rupert Winfield Hayes, which is it was about 6 months, I think, before he shot the video of them pretending they were on top of Reactor 4. It's the same guy as up there in 2013 pretending that they were on top, for the BBC, that they're on top of it. All right, because it's kind of important. And they're going to tell you the 1,000 tanks were full, not from sucking water out of the reactors, but from down in the ground below, in an aquifer. Let's play that. I'll get it out of the way.
Fukushima plant sits smack in the middle of an underground aquifer. Deep beneath the ground, the site is rapidly being overwhelmed by water. Beneath.
Now, I got people attack me constantly over the years when I say it's above an aquifer. And they're like, no, it's not. Lawyer. Scammer. But it's actually over it. I provide the evidence, unlike these people.
The surface, water flows downhill and into the basement of the damaged reactor buildings. There it is contaminated with high levels of radiation.
Contaminated with high levels of radiation.
To stop the groundwater flowing on into the nearby ocean, engineers are building an underground barrier. But that is causing the groundwater level to rapidly rise. It's now so high the water will soon reach the surface. Then it will start flowing overground into the sea. This week, the company that owns Fukushima, Tepco, made this disturbing admission.
We understand that this water discharge is beyond our control, and we do not think the current situation is good.
Outside experts say it's now clear Tepco is incapable of handling the cleanup at Fukushima.
So this is quite interesting, where you have Tepco apologizing in 2013 that they can't keep up with it. And the reason is going to come up in a moment. I want to hear that one more time.
And we do not think the current...
Let me go back a bit more. We get his... Okay.
This disturbing admission.
We understand that this water discharge is beyond our control, and we do not think the current situation is good.
It's beyond their control. And the reason is because you're talking about multiple sieverts per litre. If you try to run it through a pipe, anybody who walks close to it dies. And it radiates everything on the path. So once you take the pipes out, everything is still radioactive.
Outside experts say it's now clear Tepco is incapable of handling the cleanup at Fukushima. It's time for the Japanese government to step in. The situation is already beyond what Tepco can handle, he says. If it were possible to take proper measures, they would have done it already. It's not as if Tepco is refusing to do what they can. They're doing everything they can, but there are no perfect solutions. Even if the government does step in, it's not clear what it can
Small
do.
tanks.
The only other solution is to pump out the contaminated groundwater and put it in storage tanks. But after just 2 years, the site is
And they're talking about the aquifer under the buildings.
already jammed with more than 1,000 giant tanks. Most of them are already full up.
So you got more than 1,000 tanks. They're all filled up with stuff they pumped up from the aquifer under the site in 2013. Tepco acknowledging they can't control the water. And you would need 1 million gallons typically. Let's finish the video here.
At least 400 tons of new water pours into the site every day.
But the reactors would normally use, which is equal to almost a garden hose for each reactor, normal, everyday, 3 8.5-inch garden hose, which is 120 tons a day. So 400 tons is less than 4 of those garden hoses that everybody has at a house, for instance, right? Or like the ones you use to put air in your tires or wash your car. You know, it's the same capacity almost.
And it's going to continue for years and years. Fukushima's water crisis has only just begun.
Rupert
Rupert
Wingfield
Wingfield.
Hayes, that's reactor 4. So it looked like that the end of 2013, the beginning of 2014. And because they didn't have the bottom part, so this is the top of reactor 4, but they're claiming the top is now up here because they put this contraption they built off-site. It doesn't physically touch the stump of reactor 4. But look how low the damage is here. Like, so it's only 20, 25 feet off the ground. So all of that above there is gone. The reactor fuel pools were way up here. So they built this contraption that cantilevers over the building, doesn't physically touch the building. And then they're claiming that they're in the fuel pools. And I'll show you that. Let me finish this.
Hayes, BBC News in Tokyo.
Rupert Wingfield Hayes, BBC Tokyo. That's him up right there, by the way. And that's before they put that contraption over it. And they had stripped all of that off, right? And then they cleaned that up and they put a contraption over it to hide it from you. And meanwhile, everything was gone. Okay, we're getting somewhere now. So this was last year. The International Atomic Energy Agency says public trust is the key to projects. At the time of Fukushima's 30 million one-ton bags. That now they somehow magically got down to 14 million, is it? With no explanations of where the other 16 million bags went away to. We know they did nothing to the other ones. It says public trust is key to projects using radioactive soil from Fukushima. Public trust. So they're dumping the bags out, is what you're seeing there. And that's in Okuma and Futaba, which are south and north, respectively, joined on to the nuclear site itself, the communities. So on the border of the community, they built one side, let's kind of say it that way. One side is in Futaba, which is the north side, when you're facing it from the coastline, until you left to south towards Tokyo is Okuma. Right? Then they built the plant on the border between those two communities. Those two communities had a border. They were economically depressed, so to speak. There's the little demon right there. The International Atomic Energy Agency is not a regulator and therefore not in a position to judge or approve Japan's soil recycling, their tanks, or anything else. If they're not in a position to judge, which is a pretty broad spectrum, right? That's literally saying we got nothing to say. Yet they got everything to say, don't they? They keep showing up in the media as the arbiter of good and bad when it comes to nuclear. Clark said noting that the group's tasked to make sure the JEP's plan is in line with the degenerate safety standards on disposal of radioactive waste, which has already been disposed of. That's why you picked up 50 million one-ton bags of radiation on 3% of the land. You built 1,000 tanks, which is what you got today, and BBC, Rupert Winfield Hayes, and Tepco, by their own words, the tanks were all full in 2013. So you've been creating all this extra water. Now you need it. Each reactor needs there's 4 reactors melted down. You need 1 million gallons, 4,500 tons, just for a working reactor. When it goes critical, you need a lot more water. Everything's flushed directly into the Pacific Ocean. And I launched research expeditions to look for the species that should be there. And we went for year after year after year for 6 years. In the entire coastline from Vancouver, British Columbia to Alaska, 4 to 5 months a year. Gut-wrenching trips, looking for the species to your left. And what we found is the species to the right. That's an extinction event. We went back for the extra 5 years after the first year to see if the species recovered. And I'm tired of this planet sitting in silence. I am fed up with this planet sitting in silence, refusing to grow up here. What is wrong with this planet? Why? Like, I went out there and done the work for 6 years. The species to your left never came back. There was an incredible amount of highly visible species. They didn't come back. What does that mean, I wonder? What's layman's term for that? Oh, yeah, that's right, extinction event. And because I dove that coastline also for years as a commercial diver, if I can't find it, who's going to find it? Really? Plus my legacy on the ocean. If I can't find it, who's going to find it? Not the chicken X from the university. For sure, right? And what made me unique was when I was young, I'd done every industry on that coast. I worked at every industry, not just on the Atlantic, but on the Pacific. And I ran commercial dive operations and commercial boats and for my whole career, right? And then I switched to nuclear. I got taken out by a bad diving accident. many years to recover. So I just got re-educated. Harvard, Yale, Stanford, Oxford, MIT, that's where I cut my teeth. So the species to your left are gone. They're not coming back. That's an extinction event. And it was amazing to go to these coastlines. You have to wait for high tide. You could never go from low tide up to put a beach line on a tree because you break your necks because there's so much life, right? It's very dangerous. So once the tide is high, it's like low tide, you can't walk on that stuff over there. Besides that, it's morally repugnant. You just wouldn't do it anyway. You treasured that stuff. I admired that every moment of every day. When I was on the ocean floor working in Harmony, I'd done my best not to touch anything. And for 6 hours a day, that's a hard job, but because there's life, you can't put your foot down anywhere, see? My work required me putting my feet down a lot. So I do a lot of survey to find a place where I wasn't going to harm marine life any more than necessary. And the ocean was the soup of life. See the soup of life? The tide zones were like that, the whole bloody thing. And if I took a 5-gallon bucket or a bulldozer and scraped that whole coastline, the species from deeper on both sides would fill up the gap in a couple of weeks. You never know I was there. Because it's not just regulated to this band of high tide to the low tide line. They're the most resilient. They're able to live for 4 hours, 5 hours, depending on where they're positioned along the tidal zones. But these species were very robust. But there's nothing on the planet that has an autoimmune trigger to defend against anthropogenic man-made radiation. So when it lands, brother and sister, you got a problem, right? I mean, the French study of 1 million to 10 million atoms per cubic meter of air hitting the mountains and washing down to the coastlines. And I've done the entire coastlines. Fukushima really happened, right? The radioactive fallout to your left is Tepco's numbers of neptunium-239, which decays to plutonium-239. But while you're waiting, we've got a plume of plutonium. And it's not just plutonium-239. I mean, they banned the food in 14 prefectures for a decade with 55 countries. And so for the International Atomic Energy Agency, this terrorist organization, telling you that it's like 3 grams of sugar or that they're at the top of a building that clearly they can't be. And the reality of it is they don't have the authority. They're not a regulator. They're not a judge. And they're not in a position to judge or approve Japan's soil or tanks or anything else. They're a consulting group with a military-industrial complex known as UN. We used to be named League of Nations. Let me give you the skinny, the 411. August the 12th, 2014, Tepco to abandon the REVA system, which is very similar to the ELF system. In 2014, the ELF system allegedly was finished early 2015, 2 years after the last tank of 1,000 tanks was filled up from the aquifers underneath the site of hideous radiation. For the last 3 years, the system had been unused, kept out of operation. They allegedly turned it on because that's literally the stupidest thing you could do, and you can never get near it again. Because if you try to put multiple sievers through a filter, a water filter, can't get close enough to change it. And after a half an hour, the 1, 2, 3 sieverts that are going through 1,000 sievert filter are going to come at the other end of 5 or 6 sieverts. It simply can't work, right? It's not supported by science. Even if you take science and wrap it on a fucking stick and shove it up it still won't work. The logic doesn't work, right? That's what they should be doing with the people that came up with this law. Is exactly that. Tepco to abandon the REVA system because it's stupid, like everything Japanese touch. Tepco says the groundwater bypass operation. Tepco? Instead of nuclear industry. Where was the nuclear industry when all this was happening? We got a operator, not a manufacturer, not an academic, not institutions that used to be problem solvers. You got an operator who got to save bucks because they're nationalized now by the Japanese government. Tepco says the groundwater bypass operation not having a fix, and admits that the groundwater bypass operations failed to reduce tons of water from entering the crippled reactor site. Well, like to fill all the tanks up with the aquifers from underneath the site itself. And then they were going to block water coming down the mountain and direct it or pump it around the site. But there's no bottom on the site, so it just goes underneath it through liquefaction, right? And it doesn't work. They spent a fortune doing it, though. The taxpayers' money. Anything but a solution. Tepco says because you can't go near the reactors is the reality of it, see? How many nuclear scientists do you know that went to Fukushima? Oh, that's right, you don't know a fucking one, do you? I don't care who you are, where you to. You don't know a single one. Tepco says they don't know when, if ever, the pumping operations will have any tangible effects. I still laugh every time I see that video of a bunch of, they're like doing a little maze and a nuclear meltdown. Everybody was moving. Nobody stood still. Everybody was... I'm going to lose my voice. Tepco says they don't know when, if ever, the pumping operations will have any tangible effects on the groundwater. And they also forced to emit the ice wall was intended to control the groundwater flow was, unsuccessful. They failed to deliver on a promise to install a fence on the ocean side. We're talking on the eastern side of the site. But out on the west side, or the east side, is the ocean side. West side is the other side. So they were going to build one behind the site to direct water around, and they were going to build another fence by the ocean to stop the radiation from getting in the ocean, Dana, because the tanks were all full. It doesn't work that way. You can't do that. We're talking about radiations. Once the radiation comes up to the surface, it's a lethal dose, airborne and everywhere else. You can't go near the site ever. You lose the site completely. At the time, Tepco asked the government not to announce that they had committed to constructing the fences. Asked the government not to announce. Well, first off, they are the government. They were nationalized right away, which means the government took them over. And if the Japanese takes you over, then you're non-functional forever. But that's what they want Tepco. They left the figurative name company there, per se. And so you can always blame Tepco, not the nuclear industry, not Japan. You do blame Tepco, right? That's the idea of that. That they are committed to constructing, and you see this symmetrically with all nuclear events. The companies which are not decommissioned authorities are despised and hated by the population, and the employees are put in charge, really, of something so serious, something so catastrophic to everything with replicating cells. As the utility was concerned that the $1 billion construction cost would increase its debt. They spent $23 billion on picking up one-ton bags, 30 million of them. They're worried about $1 billion extra that'll screw the shareholders over a couple of pennies each. Then Tepco did not undertake the work they promised to complete, so that's another $1 billion. The ice wall operation was not meeting expectations. They have found that the ice wall plans are not progressing according to plan, yet to form an ice stopper with no bottom on it, no top on it. So the water would just go underneath it anyway, even if you were managed to get it to freeze. It's never done before. And that the money that they spent on this thing, wait till you get a load of this. The ice wall will not stop the groundwater from entering the reactor buildings or going back into the ocean. What the hell? It was 260,000 people worked on that ice wall. So if you took the money that they spent, the official tally, and you gave everybody $1,100 each, then you had nothing left to build a wall with. Why did you have to use 260,000 people on this ice wall? You used 260,000 on the ice wall. And how many did you use on the fences? And how many did you use on the bypass operation? And how many did you use on the water filtration system? And there's like the numbers we got, they were making around $11 a day. The employees, the homeless, the destitute, the victims of society, the immigrants who don't speak the language. When is this planet going to smarten up and accept the fact and say, well, this is clearly wrong? What's wrong with doing that? Why is that so hard? Everybody got an opinion about everything else, but you haven't got an opinion on facts that I provide. And you don't seem to realize that it just affects, the reason they're doing all these laws and manipulations is because you're poisoned already because there's so much released. And your loved ones and your friends and your families, and health implications are catastrophic. Tepco plans to dump the water stored at the Fukushima 2013. It already released enormous amounts of highly contaminated water directly into the ocean from a plethora, a massive amount of leaks. Leaks. The reactor building's got leaks data. You should have told somebody. Let me check here. I don't know. Yeah, they probably got a few leaks. Don't they got that, what is it? Liquid glass, Dana. Liquid glass. What they done was they saved all the toilet paper they used in a special container, and they went down there and stuffed it full of shit when they went there. Like if I was to meet a nuclear scientist, if he said hello, I'd say, liar! Because you don't trust him, right? Here's how much confidence they had from all the regulatories. EU Energy Commissioner called it an apocalypse and everything was under control. France said, get out of there now. Get out of the country. When France bails on you, buddy, you got problems. Tokyo's lost almost all control of the events in Fukushima. Energy official. Oh, my favorite one. Korea calls it incompetent. Yeah, but we're talking about nuclear meltdowns. That's not a word you should have for the nuclear meltdowns. Just hang on. I got to keep my finger on the trigger or I might start talking after with no volume. Scuttlebug. I got a frog and a frog in my throat and frog and frog in the throat. Might not be able to make it much longer if I don't stop yelling. I was here watching that video of them on top of the reactors. I was laughing my arse off just before I went live. I should have waited because I was howling. I say that. Holy shit. We should sue for that one, shouldn't we? Korea called the Japs' handling of Fukushima incompetent. Water above a sievert per hour, they're talking about per liter. Right. Tepco done nothing for over 2 years to stop the highly radioactive Fukushima leak. Everything's a leak. If you're losing 1 billion gallons a day, it's a leak. It's leaking. If it's anything else, you got a massive hemorrhage. If it's Fukushima and any nuclear whatsoever, it's a leak. International Degenerate Agency. Today, admitted there is no such thing as a safe level of radiation, that the standards are actually based on natural stuff, not man-made. Can you wrap me around that statement? That's why we got one of those fancy poles here tonight. Let me see. Where the hell am I? Oh. Stop squinting my eyes here. I gotta clean my glasses. That'll help. It'll go a long way. Should the degenerate International Atomic Energy Agency / terrorists be designated a terrorist organization officially? Because unofficially, they're not a terrorist organization. Try to wrap your mind around that. I know, you're like, no way, they're a terrorist organization. No, honest to God, they're not yet. They will be at some point. Everybody agrees with that. I got 100% of the voters agree. They should be designated. I think if you had a poll worldwide, the world is actually wised up to these chicken necks, right? I'm surprised the spammers haven't came in and no bombed me. and all the spam accounts. Let's get back to business. When I was putting this story together, I was starting to lose my mind. And Japan says the area 150 kilometers from the nuclear meltdown is radioactive as the area is close to the meltdown. But nothing got out, Dana. We're the IAEA. Come on, we wouldn't lie to you. You're Dana. What have we got done now? The strange thing about these people is a lot of them are compartmentalized, but not the ones that are going to Fukushima, of course. But a lot of them are dysfunctional and they're isolated, right? And they think they're part of this big picture. They are this big picture of nightmare. And a lot of them are inbreeds of previous nightmares. Very well educated scumbags, incredibly educated scumbags. $5,000 suits and dirty underwear. That's your typical profile, right? Hang on, but we're getting there. You got to think about 80 years of schools and universities and TV and Hollywood, everything else telling you nuclear is like a banana and a potato chip and walking in the sunshine and sleeping next to somebody. Yep. But there's not an academic on the planet when they looked at this detonation of Medusa, Reactor 3, that already could put that projection fairly accurately that the plume would cover the planet in about 26 days. All the models agree upon it. But they all knew that the reactor core and the fuel pool was being ejected out of the building. So like 9 reactors. Each reactor was pure uranium, pure plutonium, unlike stupid Chernobyl, which was brutal, by the way. They closed 9,400 farms 3,000 kilometers away in Ireland, Scotland, United Kingdom. And I wait all day and all night to sit here for an hour and a half, 2 hours, and hope you will wake up and go to war with me. I work all day just to find new stories to drag you in there so I can get you and brainwash you. Create a million little bastards just like me. Because after what they done to me, that was kind of the thought I had in my mind, was dirty bastards. I'm never going to give it up now. You got my name destroyed. My reputation is destroyed. Harassed me, stalked me, constantly, even today. Done everything you could to destroy my life and everybody I love, and everything I care about, and everything on this planet. So I will hound you by educating the population. And you can censure the dailies out of me, but I'm pretty sure I'm winning by the looks of it. There's 660 gigawatts of renewables coming online this year, and just solar. There's nothing fresh came online for nuclear. And they're like, it's a nuclear renaissance, buy stocks. And small modular reactors and fusion, which don't even exist, or highly unlikely to exist on top of that. Because geothermal and solar is curb stomping. Gas, oil, and coal, and nuclear, and particularly nuclear. Nuclear is so ugly. Such a hideous industry. 35.8% of Fukushima children have tumors because it's like a banana and a potato chip, right? International Atomic Energy Agency. And these are tumors we're talking about, which are 2 centimeters, right? The thyroid gland of a kid is only 2 centimeters by 2 centimeters. An adult is 3 by 5. And so that's a tumor. And that means you're making radioactive hormones, which they need desperately because, they're kids and they're developing. And the best way to destroy the population is attack the newborns, right? Of all species. And that's what radiation is good at. It's excellent at it. You can't see it or smell it or hear it or feel it or taste it or touch it or pick it up or perceive it. No. X-ray-like images shows how radioactivity spread throughout the bodies of the Fukushima wildlife. That's applicable for every single continent and every millimeter of soil. That is applicable. That's the most frightening statement imaginable right there. And here's another one. It wasn't just wildlife. I couldn't help but feel pity for the trees and plants. X-ray-like images shows the spread of radioactivity equivalent to miscarriages, stillbirths, congenital malformations. What's going to happen because you mutated all these plants now and species that are getting radiated? They're eating the radioactive mutated plants. What do you think is the ultimate outcome of that one, I wonder? Good times, Dana, good times. Fukushima plume model showed 1 million atoms a square meter over the west coast after the reactor's explosion. The highest levels of government were worried about the health impact. UC Berkeley, California, University told the public there is no plume, which is unconscionable, really. Like, it's unconscionable. And there wasn't an academic on the planet, including that one, when they looked at that, didn't know the reactor fuel pools and the reactor cores from reactor 3 and 4 were gone. This was applicable to the reactor 1 and 2. But when you had 20 million particles, not atoms is bad enough, but particles are infinitely worse. Because you can pretend that didn't happen. You can pretend that didn't happen. You can pretend all these studies didn't happen. Is all you want. But the insects don't. The missing insects, and you're not cleaning your windshield last number of years, tells a different story, doesn't it? The West Coast was, unless you're in high elevation, you'll still find some insects there, won't you? But sea level, man, it's hard. West Coast hit with 220 million atoms per liter of iodine-129, which is a gamma. It's going to saturate the thyroid glands of all the species. There's going to be full-body X-rays throughout all the meadows and all the forests on the entire planet. You're going to kill the bacteria, the fungus, and you can't have plants, healthy plants or trees without bacteria or fungus. You can't have healthy food growing, crops growing without bacteria and fungus. And you got lots of tricks you can do, right? Throw water at it, throw fertilizer at it. There's lots of tricks you can do. You can stick the GMO in it. Dirty bastards create something like that, isn't it? Detected in aquifers that supplied drinking water to large numbers of people out of Canada, United States. Transported rapidly to Canada, United States. The study was out of Ottawa, Canada. A similar study was from Vancouver, British Columbia, Canada. So, which is the right ratio, 20 million particles to 220 million particles of iodine-129, right? The iodine-131 has a ratio, it's slightly different, obviously, but typically you're getting, for every iodine-131, we had 20 million particles, for goodness sakes, per liter rainfall. This is absurd. This is absurd stuff. There's going to be 10 times more iodine-132, 30 times more iodine-133, 31 times more iodine-129, typically ratio. But when you talk about these ratios and these incredible numbers, these unprecedented, unimaginable, this is unimaginable. These are academic studies. These are unimaginable numbers, by the way. Pre-Fukushima, nobody would ever make a suggestion that these numbers could show up anywhere on the planet from an event or an accident. And the industry is always hemorrhaging radiation out of over 1,000 fuel pools. Because when you take the fuel out of the reactor core and put it in the fuel pool, it's hot because it's splitting atoms. And the amount of atoms it's splitting, think about a reactor core boils water to power 1 million homes and businesses by splitting atoms. Those atoms don't go away. You can't destroy them with incinerators or anything else. So they're released directly into the environment once you put them in the fuel pools, which has no containment. And each fuel pool, it releases it through water evaporation. They're still hot for decades. And the hot being, they're still splitting hideous, monstrous amounts. The same amount of radiation you would produce to boil water for 1 million homes each day. But there's a trick because of the pressure of there are 1,000 psi when they're in a container. containment, running as a reactor is different, right? But they're also released airborne. They're released up to tall, skinny stacks at the nuclear power site, and this is a serious problem because every nuclear power plant, except for a few, are surrounded by farms as far as you can see. If you take satellite pictures, it's as far as you can see. Case in point. Did I digress? I don't know. Doesn't matter. I don't know. I don't care. I don't care. Burnt out, had a rough day. What am I looking for? Oh, God. I changed the subject so quick. Fuel pools, tanks, fuel pools. Wait, I'm going to go backwards for 1 second. I guess it doesn't matter. I'll figure it out in a second. Cesium remains dispersed throughout the water column from the surface to the ocean floor. What do you think that means? That's 2012, by the way. From the surface, now the time of cesium, you can't just have cesium. Cesium is a gamma. That'll also go in your thyroid, by the way, of ants, birds, fish, trout, squid, you name it. It'll end up in the thyroid glands. Anything got a thyroid. If it hasn't, it'll show up somewhere else in our body. It'll sequester in the muscle, the organs, and the bones. So when they acknowledge that the cesium, for every cesium-137, for instance, there's 100 times strontium-90. Right, that ratio starts about 1,000 days, 3 years after the meltdown. And that'll continue for tens of thousands of days. Long past our experiences on this planet. That ratio of production, which is a bone seeker. So wherever you find a cesium-137, and the Francis study was 1 million to 10 million atoms, to 12 million atoms per cubic meter of air post-Fukushima. And those studies were appropriate studies. So you can do a ratio. The biggest byproduct, by the way, is the uranium or plutonium, curium isotopes. And curium isotopes need lead shielding 20 times thicker. So this contraption, they built it off-site, and then in the end of 2013, they had used remote control excavators and cranes to pick up the debris around it. And they put this contraption, they built off-site and assembled it. Now, that's a single panel. And then they came out and pretended that they were in the building. It's extraordinary. And got away with it, no resistance. And yet, even today, when you can still hold them accountable in this wonderful world that we temporarily live in, called the internet, we still refuse to do it. It's just gut-wrenching. Fukushima radiation is still circling the globe. The levels are consistently rise and fall in a 40-day cycle. And to give some context to that, I already have, but radiation doses in the northeast Great Lakes, central Canada states, equal to the west coast. And the west coast was 220 million atoms of iodine 129, 20 million atoms 131. The square meter was the xenon 133. The cesium was 1 million to 10 million atoms per cubic meter of air. The 132 to 133 iodine were in the same plumes at increased ratios, was 9 times more efficient at ionizing and radiating the thyroid gland than the incredible effect of 131 is. And then you got the longevity of the iodine 129 with a 15 million year half-life, 200 at a 31 to 1 ratio of iodine 131. And what that means is you got gammas and alphas and neutrons and betas like an invisible snowstorm. It's everywhere. It's pulsing energy. When they hit each other, they change direction. That's known as a break-in effect, also known as an X-ray. All right, we're getting somewhere now. They were also grinding up highly radioactive debris and shipping it all over the country and burning it in the local incinerators, which is the craziest thing conceivable. In many ways, not just for Japan, but because the prevailing winds blow to North America within 3 or 4 days. And then the adverse health effects in the first year just cancer patients, not everybody's health care, not everybody's diagnosed, was 865,000 extra cancers. So it's not just cancers, heart, liver, lung, respiratory. And so the International Atomic Energy Agency have done everything they can to destroy your future and everybody's future by hiding all of this from you. You have to come down out and challenge every headline I show you today. And in order to win their case, they can't do it, can they? So they should be declared a terrorist organization. The 14 prefectures are listed in the media for many years that were banned by 55 countries, 14 prefectures, the food. Not countries. When I say countries, I mean real countries, not Canada. Canada lifted all restrictions June the 14th, 2011, 93 days after Fukushima. So people wouldn't buy the food from the nuclear wasteland for a decade in 55 countries, so Canada did. And everybody in Canada is sick, and incredible sickness. They didn't stop growing food in the nuclear wasteland. Even when they're right alongside of millions of one-ton bags of radiation, they still grew food. This country should be invaded immediately, taken over. The people, and most of the people in the country are reasonable, but the government has hid whatever happened to Syria should have been happening to Japan. Japan deserves it more. They've destroyed humanity forever. Tepco confirms, and this is what the IAEA and Tepco is doing, claiming that the water is just being released as of last year, when the buildings all melted down in the first 6 days. Because some of it, like reactor 1 and 2, some of the fuel that didn't burn off into the environment, which is going to contaminate us for billions of years, like that event on its own, each reactor, not counting the fuel pools, is worse than all nuclear meltdowns in history combined. You're talking about 4 of them, with 32 similar reactors, and the fuel pools also gone too, with the same attributes as a typical. Because once it goes through a chain reaction, the elements are 2 billion times more toxic than industrial poison. That'll never change, right? That's why they talk about these deep geological repositories. But if you do that, they're going to melt down. And they'll burn at 9,000 degree Fahrenheit temperatures. They don't need oxygen. They're going to ignite all the other fuel assemblies that are buried with them. All the eggs are in one basket. And when it comes to nuclear, that's idiotic. That's insanity. Tepco confirms steam came up from underground. This is for the China syndrome. Reactor 1 and 2. Some reactor 3 and 4, I'm sure. But reactor 3 and 4 clearly lost their inventories, like catastrophically in a short period of time. Reactor 3 detonated, right? It ejected the reactor core and the fuel pools out. Once the fuel itself, there's rods, there's zirconium cladding, and inside of it is zirconium cladding pellets of uranium and plutonium. Once it goes in a chain reaction, it's always in a chain reaction. It's always splitting atoms. So when you take it out, it's still splitting those atoms. There's no containment. So even if you don't have a nuclear meltdown, even if you don't have detonations, and because you've got a China syndrome going on, there's like, so let me bring up that video. So let me bring up the video of the China syndrome. This went on for years there. How do I get that now? Oh. I didn't click in the right spot. My apologies. And the whole world's asleep because they've been denied the ability to wake up by the stupid industry, destroying everybody's future, including their own and their loved ones. And they think that that's a solution somehow. They don't have a right to make a decision for anybody on the planet, only themselves. And then they have a job where their job is to create a divide and suspicion. So this is the site with the steam coming out of the ground. I'm going to speed it up. It's already at, so that's at around 18 times normal speed. So watch what happens. I'm going to speed up for you. So if you're anywhere in that plume, that's steam coming out of the ground from the China syndrome. If you're in that plume, that's a lethal dose right away. Now, if the plume does stop, you need perfect conditions to see that plume, right? That plume is not always visible. The industry knows that's happening, right? And so they sacrifice who knows how many homeless and destitute and victims of society and immigrants that don't speak the language. And so, should the International Atomic Energy Agency, who refused to protect anybody in their entire legacy, be designated a terrorist organization for asserting Fukushima never emitted any radiation? So when you see this plume, like this, like you got to leave the site. Everybody have to abandon the site. And the only ones that going back there is people who know no concept at all about nuclear. It's a disgusting, these are disgusting, despicable people we're talking about. The International Atomic Energy Agency and the people that allowed people to go into that because they couldn't find anybody brave to do it. They couldn't come up with technology to do it because they don't try. No profit in solutions. Send us people who don't mind dying, Tepco. Send us people who don't mind dying. Have you ever seen those connotations for a coal plant or a gas plant or an oil plant or a windmill or a solar plant breaking down? That's forever. A total of 260,000 people worked on creating the ice wall. 260,000. Oh, that showed up in another story. Because I bring in, sometimes I'm sitting there and before the show starts, instead of having, get all this work done for a show, and then I just keep adding and adding and adding because I can't ignore it. Like, oh shit, I got to throw that in there. I'll find a way. Because it's so important. Vice Governor suggested a Fukushima draft. All of them must face it. 60 and older should be prepared to die is another headline. Think about that statement. Think about there's 60 million of these bags. And think about these outside rows and the top rows are supposed to be clean soil to shield people that's in that area. It's highly suspect that it is. But you're talking... You're talking over 30 million bags in just 3% of the land. They dumped at least twice, 3 times that into rivers and estuaries in the ocean at nighttime, according to the whistleblowers over the year. All right, here we go. Back at the song and dance. Japan, Fukushima water discharge. International Atomic Energy Agency experts will visit. Yeah, but they're not an authority. They're not in a position to judge, right? I showed you that headline earlier. They're just chicken eggs. Let me go back and find that headline, though. And kind of important. We're just chicken eggs. That's the words, wasn't it? No, wait now. No, that's not it. I'm just a good old-fashioned redneck chicken neck. I'll find it, though. Hang on. Don't give up on me yet. I can do it. Dana can do it. Stop fooling around, Dana. Alrighty. I gotta use liquid glass to fix all the leaks in the buildings, right? That's pretty cool. All right, we're getting somewhere now. Tanks. No, here it is. International Atomic Energy Agency. This was last year. International Atomic Energy Agency, because you can go read it yourselves, any reason I'm showing you a headline. They're dumping out the 1 ton bags in Fukushima. So that's one of the little creatures from the International Atomic Energy Agency right there. Look, she's staring at me, Dana. Let's make her stop. I was hypnotized. Don't want to tear my ear off. International Atomic Energy Agency is not a regulator and therefore not in a position to judge or approve. But Dana, they're the authority, Dana. They're not a regulator. This is their own words, by the way. Anna Clark, the section head of the Waste Environmental Safety section at the International Atomic Energy Agency, told reporters in Tokyo at the end of the 5-day visit, she was somehow to get out of there, bet you, which marks the nuclear shithead's first of 3 reviews. That's their first time there, by the way. The International Atomic Energy Agency is not a regulator, so leave me alone. We're not in a position to judge, so fuck off. Or approve Japan's soil recycling projects. So leave me alone, you bunch of scavengers. Well, the journalists were all too happy to cut your throat. They love cutting your throat so much. Mommy, why do they hate me so much? That's what every kid should be asking their parents about the International Atomic Energy Agency. Mommy, them people scares me. There's a lot of homes out there right now when kids see the International Atomic Energy Agency, that's their reaction. Like, Mommy, that man scares me. Don't worry, son. He's from the International Atomic Energy Agency. He's the good guy. You'll never hear that in anybody's household. The media will, spit that up, but you'll never hear somebody in the household saying that. How do you save somebody from the International Atomic Energy Agency from drowning? Well, that's easy, Dana. Just take your foot off their heads. Yeah, but what is it you're not allowed to do? You're not allowed to take your foot off their heads, right? Right. I think they're just horrific. I think they should have to get DNA testing just to see if they're actual humans like me and you. Make sure they got all their chromosomes, you know what I mean? Huh? Oh, the fish is all good, Dana. Yeah. You picked up 30 million 1-ton bags. Nothing will ever be safe worldwide after that, let alone in Japan. Every time it rains, every time you have a typhoon, for instance, there's brutal radiation washed right down to the coastline, the entire country. And every rice field is hideously, monstrously radioactive. Yeah, yin and yang. You say pizza, I say paka. There was we didn't do that story. I'm sorry. Oh, here we go. We're back here. I think I recognized some of this. International Atomic Energy, that's the story, right? The team is composed of 11 independent international scumbags from Argentina, Australia, Canada. You can only imagine who that could be. China, France, South Korea. Canada's so pro-nuclear. They'll, if you ask them to vote on killing everybody in Canada to save nuclear, like, yeah, I'll do it. I'll take the job. Don't even have to pay me. I'll do it in good faith for the nuclear industry. The Marshall Islands, they got somebody from the Marshall Islands. Man, these are just overdrive, degenerate scumbags from Russia, very balanced. The degenerate United Kingdom. The nuclear industry in the United Kingdom is probably the worst humans you're ever going to meet, period. United States and Vietnam. Vietnam, where they got 3 million permanently disabled children because of Agent Orange. So because they got, there's lots of gangs out there that got people from different countries too. Well, that's what they are. They're a gang, right? Discharge to the sea from Fukushima Nuclear Power Plant treated with the ALPS. And I showed you earlier the advanced liquid processing system is simply not true. I showed you all the documentation earlier in the show. In 2015, when he finally built it, they were 2 years behind all the tanks already being full. Like, we're talking about nuclear meltdowns. Like, a normal reactor needs 4,500 tons of water every minute, 1,440 minutes a day. So imagine 1,440 minutes of every day, you're wide awake. You're on speed or something. You're stood out there on the side of the road. And 4,500 trucks, 1-ton trucks full of water, because that's how much you need every minute. 4,500 1-ton pickup trucks of water, 1,000 liters, 2,200 pounds, going past you every minute. 4,500 1-ton pickup trucks driving past you every minute for 1,440 minutes. And you got to make sure everybody's being safe. Your job is to catch the guy who's not doing what he's supposed to be doing. So when it melts down, it's going to be 10 times hotter. It needs a lot more water. Or it blew up and all evaporated into the environment, except for some of it went China syndrome. And then whatever's left, you're spraying water on because you don't want that to have a criticality. And that's what we're really talking about. And that the tanks were full of the water that they pumped up from under the aquifer, according to many sources, not just the BBC that I played for you earlier. The degenerate the terrorist group known as the International Atomic Energy Agency has already sent its monsters to Japan on 2 occasions. Well, they're not going to Fukushima in reality, are they? They're not going over reactor 1, 2, and 3, and 4 and say, here we are, reactor 3. The plan received a green light from the agency, which is not a regulator. They're not in a position to judge or condemn anybody, right? And he said it, that's their own words. I showed it to you twice tonight already. The International Atomic Energy Agency, which on July 2023, 30th of July, the end of July, after 2 years of work, published a preliminary report which it promoted deeming consistent with international safety standards. Let's get through it. And the release of water can be expected to have a negligible radiological impact on people and the environment. But the reality of it is, this is what it looked like underneath this contraption you put over. And when the media came out and pretended, and that wasn't the only ones, but when the media, that's some of the major ones. So in order for the media, those ABC, CNN, a BBC, CBS set them, which is the senator's son, to pull that off was they had to have the whole CBS and BBC and CNN and ABC, for instance, everybody there had to go along with that story, that fake story. Everybody knew this was a cover-up at those medias and participated in it. The videographers, it wasn't just the videographers, the audio guys, they're not at Fukushima. They're at an identical reactor. There's 70 of them in the United States shooting their footage. So those plants had to participate. Those nuclear plants had to participate to allow the media to come in and fake that story. It wasn't just those 4, by the way. And all the universities that didn't call them out, didn't correct it, didn't try to educate the population, say this is outrageous, didn't say, hey, fake news. But this is not just fake news, this is lethal news. Pretending you're in a building that don't exist because its effects are catastrophic to everything with replicating cells. The whole story is absurd. That we have nothing, no check and balances of any shape, description. So they didn't just do it there; they done it at reactor 3 also. Reactor 3, they put a contraption over a building that doesn't exist. There's the stump of it. The reactor cores and the fuel pools of reactor 3 at the top of the buildings, they don't exist. The media pretending that they're up to... Here's media representatives. This was Rupert Winfield Hayes, actually, that video. And I showed you a picture of him. There's a video of him. We play that sometimes. Where he's claiming he's on top of reactor 3 and reactor 4. We've got a video of each of them where a huge dome is being constructed. This was built off-site, brought in and assembled over a destroyed building. It doesn't physically touch the building to your left because it's destroyed. Or the contraption is built to support around it. They done the same thing for reactor 4. How is that acceptable, and why is that not a concern for everybody on this planet? Because you better start turning it into a concern. Saying it has no adverse side effects is equal to 3 grams of sugar, according to South Korean professor of nuclear and quantum engineering. Cesium-137 plume, according to the French government, the IRSN. The French government. Now, that's the Chernobyl model. That's the Fukushima model, but that's only based on 8 days. I'll play the one for you based on 31 days. Giggity. And I don't care if I got to tell you 900 times. If that's what it takes to get you up to speed, I'll do it. I'm not going to like it. I'll do it. So here was another study, radiation levels of the U.S. West Coast. This is the French IRSN, an updated version. Was 1 million times what they call normal of cesium-137. At 1 million to 10 million atoms times, which now you're talking about 30 to 40 million atoms per cubic meter of air. And that model you're looking at there is based on 7 days after the tsunami and 3 days after the last detonation. But this is the model based on 31 days. So when this model stops, think of a snowstorm. It started in Japan, and you're at day 20. The snowstorm is now covering the entire planet. It's a continuous snowstorm wrapped around, enveloping the entire planet that never goes away. But you can't see it, and you can't smell it, and you can't hear it, and you can't feel it, and you can't taste it, and you can't touch it, you can't pick it up, and you can't throw rocks at it, you can't perceive it. But the study shows it exists, and that is catastrophic to everything we're replicating cells. And cesium-137, by the way, pulses, each atom of this invisible snowstorm is pulsing energy 600 feet every second for 300 years. But the plume never stopped coming out. I don't know if you noticed it. Let me do that. Let me explain that to you one more time. A little bit important. So watch the plume coming out. I'm going to fast speed it myself. It's a continuous plume coming out of there. It never stops coming out of there. And just because the model stopped at 31 days, which is what that model is stopped at right there, we're in real trouble. And we better have a conversation real soon. We're way down the rabbit hole. Anybody realize we still got to deal with this? At some point, we're going to go, oh, shit, Fukushima. Get yourself educated. Come on over to the winning side. High concentrations of radiation hit the United States and Canada. Plume was rich in cesium-137. If it was rich in 137, cesium, it's rich in everything else. The cesium-137 is not a loner. It's not like, yeah, get away from me, uranium, you bastard. No. It travels with everything else. If you got one, you got all the other little creatures. All the other little nightmares are built into the same plume. So you got cesium. All the models are showing you the same thing, right? Cesium, 31 days. Xenon-133, 19.5 days, 468 hours. I think this model is cesium and iodine. Hang on here. I can't remember. Just cesium-137. Let me check the volume on that. Is that volume? Oh, that's just a picture of it. I screwed that up. It's similar to that when you watch the video. I thought I had the video there. My apologies. Sue me! Extremely large peak of Fukushima radioactive material. Significant amount of plutonium. It's named after the devil because it loves you so much. Released for months. Of course it was. Well, the biggest byproduct is going to be curium isotopes. Listen, this industry, it's got so much nuclear waste, it turns some of it into bullets. That's all the A-10 death machine shoots. And wherever these are all, consider every one of them a dirty bomb. These are dull rem, depleted uranium, low-level radioactive material. They're not coated. They're not tipped. They're pure uranium. So they had the United States studied the question of disposal, and they're showing you the A-10 Warthog in the story itself. Studied the question of disposal of 35.7 million ammunitions with a core. It's not tipped and it's not coated depleted uranium. It's a core. The bullet itself is uranium, which is pyrophoric. It catches fire as it's going through the air, right? With a core of depleted uranium. In addition to the aviation munitions, in the United States plan to hold utilization of armor-piercing tank shells caliber 105 and 120 millimeter. But the Abrams tank shoots 155 millimeters, which are pure uranium. And that's why a lot of the tank gunners were coming, because they sit on these munitions because they take up so much room in the tank, were coming back with rectal cancer. The document presents a range of munitions that the Pentagon plans to dispose of. From McAllister, McAllister and Anison, McAllister, California, Oklahoma. I got to do something. McAllister, Oklahoma, have over 1,000 of the buildings there for the nuclear. But the four big weapon producers on that site, that community, it's a community. There's like 1,500 people. Everybody works at the nuclear dirty bomb factories. These are dirty bombs. That's what you're firing in other people's countries. They're pyrophoric. They catch as fire as they're going through the air. And they're saturated with radioactive elements that you can't extract. You can't extract all the elements from because this went through a chain reaction and was rejected for the fuel. But it was really good to use for munitions. And these are crimes against humanity, and that a Japanese physicist at a Hamburg conference estimated what was it? The 1,500 tons that they acknowledged to use in Desert Storm, 1989, was it? My memory's a little battered after all these years of nuclear. Was equal to 44,000 Nagasaki bombs worth of low-level radioactive fallout. It was 1,500 tons. The A-10 Warthog, that's what they're showing you right there. These things are ferocious. I can't remember the numbers per minute that they fire. But they fire 1.5 tons of depleted uranium munitions, dirty bombs, a minute. 1.5 tons of dirty bombs a minute. And none of the targets they've ever attacked were worthy of utilizing these, because this contaminates the food. They blasted every building, literally, in Afghanistan and Iraq with this stuff. The soldiers are using it. They were firing 5.5 million rounds a month. That whole story is insane, right? So these are friggin' animals doing stuff like that anyway. Tepco, this story, the Insurance Journal. Tepco removes nuclear fuel debris from the Fukushima disaster site. Now, we covered the story recently. It was a piece of fuel. It took 4 years, $48 million to build a robot. And what the robot does, it goes like this. Right? That's it. It's like a fishing rod and goes. $48 million. That makes sense to me. It's the nuclear industry, remember? So, like the story, they don't tell you that in this story, but we've covered a lot over the last month or so. Radioactive debris was removed, so it gives the people that are reading this from the Insurance Journal the illusion that nuclear is being cleaned up, right? Simply not true. It was the size of a grain of rice. So if you can't appreciate that, eat a grain of rice, and that's all you eat every day. And eventually, what happens? You show up a little bit more emaciated than the whales and the birds we're seeing. It's post-Fukushima. Damage at Unit 2 is what... Don't do that, by the way. Damage at Unit 2 is what prompted Tepco to discuss evacuating Fukushima workers. I'm only laughing because... perhaps because the reactor burned continuously for several days. That was the reactor they removed a little grain of rice-sized nuclear fuel debris. But they didn't have to do anything. All they had to do was show up early and pick up some of the fuel rods and the fuel pools and reactor cores from Reactor 3 right alongside of it that were ejected all over Reactor 2. No, they built up this fantasy story that they spent $48 million, 4 years developing a robot, and all the robot does, it was the grain of rice size chip. They claim they spent $48 million with a robot to get out of there, and they failed multiple times, and they finally got a piece out, and it'll change. It's going to change the nuclear decommissioning somewhere in the future. Like, they tell so many lies, I can't comprehend. This is obviously all done by, engineered by the International Atomic Energy Agency. And they're using Taiwan, China, South Korea, and Japan to influence and the Asian population, because, a lot of people, right? And then hoping that will be infectious on European and North Americans, for instance. With a claw grip / not a robot / $48 million, really? Really? United Kingdom and Japan worked tirelessly for 4 years to make that robot that goes. All you got to do is have two magnets, right? Really strong magnets where you can control the feed. And then once you break the brakes, once you let go of the brakes, it goes, closes and hangs tight. And you just reel it back up. It's humiliating to call it a robot. It's an embarrassment to every robot out there, I'm sure. Robots all over the world are hanging their head in shame after that story. The removed debris is set to be transported to Japan's Atomic Energy Agency research facility. It was secret too, right? But hey, they could have got it out of Reactor 4 if they really wanted a piece sooner. They could have got it out of Reactor Medusa and Reactor 3, couldn't they? Did they really need a robot? Did they really need to wait 13 years to get their hands on a size, something the size of a grain of rice? Did they really need to wait? Because that's what it looked like on day 6. And when it booted the reactor core and the fuel pools out of the buildings, you wouldn't have to work very hard to find a piece equivalent to what they got, would it? I'm just saying, not trying to be a smarty pants over here or nothing. And he put it in a sealed container and he secretly transported it to the Japs' nuclear stupid site. The demonstration is part of Tepco's cleanup plan for the site. Thank God for Tepco. You're heroes. The bottom of the 3 reactors at the plant. Oh, this is just amazing. Tepco, I love you. Oh, what? There's a few colleagues over there, but I bet you. Which is decommissioning the plant alongside the Japanese government, is using a robotic arm that looks like a fishing rod. Like the first, if you actually did it's absurd to suggest you actually done this, by the way, but if they done that and actually got out their little tiny grain, just because you got cameras watching or something, who knows? You can never get near that again because it's so radioactive. It was wild off fuel, Dana, for goodness sakes. Logic is not allowed. Go away, logic, get out of here. You're crazy. But couldn't they just, that's Reactor 3, that's Reactor 2. Why wait 13 years to get something out of that building? When they could have got something out of that building, it was wide open. It was good. And that was a plutonium mixed oxide reactor. That is infinitely worse than Reactor 2. A new museum is set to bring butterflies to the world all over the world, butterflies are going to Fukushima. That'll suck in some tourists. That's what they want, right? They're going to put that up in Shikagawa, I think it was. Shikagawa. Yamamatsu. Oh, yeah, it's lit over there in red. Fukushima. And up there by Tomoka is where the nuclear plant melted down. But they picked up 30 million one-ton bags in that area. So they want to drag people in close to the nuclear meltdown and then tell them, I'll go over to the museum in Fukushima. It's free. You can take the shuttle. Tell the homeless who are on their way home how good they're doing. And in addition to the roughly 10,000 items from the collection, butterfly collectors and enthusiastics worldwide has offered to provide between 20,000 and 30,000 items for display and storage in a nuclear wasteland. We lost our planet to the stupid, to the pro-nuclear idiot machines. People involved in the project are aiming to build a tourist attraction. Dana, I never would have guessed that in 1,000 years. 2,000 years, maybe even. That's amazing. This is why I don't keep sharp objects on my desk, because I'm poking myself all the time with them. If this stuff doesn't drive you crazy, you're not paying attention. Just a little bit crazy. Here's an idea. Let's go back over to the poll. The poll. Hey, come on, we got what's going on here? We got more likes than on the poll. It's always opposite. Should International Atomic Energy Agency be designated a terrorist organization for claiming Fukushima never emitted any radiation? If I haven't got you convinced now, you're still on the fence. It must hurt, is all I can say. That's the reason you're still there. You got something stuck up in here. 1 million atoms per square meter in nuclear wasteland. I never seen that. I never dreamt it for a second. All the radioactive fallout in North America, but they got nothing at ground zero, is amazing. A mission of the International Atomic Energy Agency, which is not a regulator. It is not in a position to judge. They don't have any sovereignty over any country. I showed you those headlines earlier. If you're you're just joining us now, then we already... Of the International Degenerate Terrorist Organization, known as IAEA, arrived in Japan on Monday for its third review of operations to discharge into the sea. Yeah, nothing got out, except for... Well, the truth has never gotten out. There's any problem with this story. To treat it, this is a model from a Germany institute based on 5 years of cesium-137 dispersal, or 6 years. Is it? Well, this model right there is 2013. And it gets worse. Water. Oh, when you pour water over a nuclear meltdown, there's no longer water at all. And there's a lot of evidence suggesting that's what they're trying to kill is water worldwide. At the meltdown hit plant, that's a connotation we've seen a lot of in the last 2 or 3 years. That they don't want to say nuclear meltdown in the sentence. They use at the meltdown hit plant, meltdown hit. Like you never heard this pre-Fukushima period, worldwide anywhere. You'll never find a headline, a legacy headline with those connotations in it, right? Tepco, which released water. Of course, he wants you to blame Tepco no matter what happens, because this is an extinction event, and the world better wake up right now. You got to wake up and come to your senses and get busy. At a meeting Monday, the director and coordinator of the degenerate International Atomic Energy Agency terrorist nuclear safety and security department, they're disguised as the safety and security department, is more like it. They're real life terrorists. Explained plans to produce the agency's third report. Yeah, just waiting for Tepco to get back to us. Just hanging out, drinking sake and eating sushi that we brought with us. We'll continue to monitor the discharge of the treated until the very last drop, until the last Japanese drop's dead. In the first year, it was 865,000 extra cancers. Not everybody got health care. Not everybody's diagnosed, and not everybody's getting cancer or even close to it. There's too many other diseases. Inhaling just a single particle, comparisons with x-rays and CAT scans are meaningless. Inhaling the particles increases the radiation exposure by a factor of 1 trillion because it's in your body, it detonates every second. And that detonation can travel 600 feet. So it's wrecking chromosomes and wrecking DNA throughout your body every second. But if it's out in your garden, it's just as bad. It's pulsing right through your house, wrecking your loved one's health in increments. It's a slow kill, but a guaranteed one. And it destroys the integrity of the biota of the ecosystem. We got to deal with this. All parts of the fuel rods appear to have melted at all 3 reactors, admits Tepco. Huge problem. No shit. That was May the 18th. Again, right, where's the logic? Because when you see any academic on the planet, when they see reactor 3 explosion, they know the fuel pool's gone. They know the reactor core is ejected right out of the buildings. This is stuff we never even conceived. There's no literature in the textbooks or academics, and I scoured these things. There's no literature on just the implications of it pre-Fukushima. And there should have been, because Chernobyl happened, but Chernobyl was a paper towel compared to Fukushima. Chernobyl was brutal. I mean, they closed 9,400 farms 3,000 kilometers away, for goodness sakes. There's around 400 still closed today. Ireland, Scotland, United Kingdom. This is madness to even have this thing on our planet. We have to declare the nuclear industry for what it is, a terrorist biological weapon. Radioactive fallout is a biological weapon. The nuclear industry is terrorism. The fuel pools are the most despicable, disgusting, sadistic. This is crazy. The fuel pools are just, it's sickening. They're hemorrhaging radiation every second. Like the fuel is splitting atoms. Like each fuel rod, there's so many atoms there that's being released every minute, let alone every day. Each plant is making a plume of radiation that eventually cloaks the whole planet and gets assimilated in everything. And there's nothing on the planet that has an autoimmune trigger to defend against it. Has nuclear energy finally overcome the Chernobyl? This is the most craziest story imaginable, because the media is consistently claiming that Chernobyl is worse than Fukushima. Chernobyl is maybe at 2% of Fukushima. That's about it. Chernobyl is brutal. But its adverse effects, which are incredible, are still only 2% of what Fukushima pulse event was. Remember 36 reactors going kapow. Each reactor is probably 100 Chernobyls, because Chernobyl was a graphite, brand new reactor, with no fuel pools whatsoever. And he threw 1 million people at it right away. Still melting down into the earth as far as I know. Major nuclear accidents like Chernobyl and Fukushima significantly impacted the global perception of disease factors known as nuclear power, hindering it as a reliable Again, you'll see the word clean used constantly. 3 major nuclear events throughout history. What are you talking about, 3? Like, they dumped the nuclear fuel on the continental shelf of the United Kingdom for 30 years. Just went out with these specially designed freighters to throw nuclear waste overboard all day, every day. And they didn't have much time to get it overboard, so it all ended up going on the continental shelf, typically less than 200 feet deep. When it gets down around 3 atmospheres, 100 feet, every 33 feet is an atmosphere. There's just 14.8 pounds per square inch per atmosphere. So when you get down, say, 3 atmospheres, the drums are going to crush. And because the tops and bottoms are crimped on, they're going to let go. The fuel is immediately dispersed into the biosphere ecosystem. And the continental shelf is the nursery. Like, I only bring this up all the time because it's so freaking important. So the events at Chernobyl, Fukushima, and 3 Mile Island, well, Santa Susana is 460 times more emissions than 3 Mile Island. So it was equivalent of 460 3 Mile Islands meltdowns, because that's how much more radiation was released. Which it was a sodium reactor, experimental reactor. Like, I think all sodium reactors melted down. The Fermi, the Eureka, goodness gracious, I can't remember the name of the guy who started nuclear's first chain reaction. Enrico Fermi, was it? I believe I might have forgot something. My brain is plugged with so many of these deceits and propaganda. It was always a nightmare because you can't just tell the story. Like, when you're reading what I'm doing is I'm just looking for lies the media told today. I can get to maybe 10% of it. I can get to a lot more than that, but I can only sit here for a couple hours and share with you 10% of it because it's complicated. Every lie is complicated, isn't it? It's not complicated when you know the other side of the story, but it's complicated to sit there and bring you the information, right? Just bombard you with documentation. That's how you win, though, eventually. Say, I and us, we win eventually. The nuclear industry fails because reality has to set in. The truth of what I'm saying is so horrific. Those research expeditions were so devastating. And so they use the word clean for nuclear all the time. Clean. Clean! So clean! So clean, the people at the nuclear plants never going to wipe their ass, dude. They're so clean. Fukushima Nuclear Power Plant disaster was a documentary showed up. Another bullshit. If the nuclear industry puts the brakes on, whoever the producer was, their nose is going to go way up. Someone's pro-nuclear Earth. This was after the tsunami. They show you the pre-Fukushima pictures. Oh, it looks a lot different than there now, don't it? That's the tsunami coming in. And you see that black smoke? That's the boat trying to get away from the shorelines. Remember, they come in at around 400 or 500 miles per hour, one beyond the other. You can see another boat over there in the top of the wave. And they told so many lies. They were like, I'm not going down that road today. I can't get through what I got already. So that's the tsunami coming in. An iconic picture, that one in particular. We show you these pictures anyway. So there's multiple tsunamis. One would ingress way into the country, and the next one would come in on top of it at 400 or 500 miles per hour, and would take a town, and that would slow it down a bit, but it would still travel at over 100 miles per hour. Then you can't outrun it. All the typical blah blah blahs. I'm just looking for anything entertaining here. The worst prefectures, the whole country shook for 6 minutes. The worst prefectures, Miyagi, Fukushima, Ibaraki, and Tochigi. Fukushima is the prefecture. There we go. I tilted the Earth axis and moved them east 8 feet, was it? Yeah, I moved them 8 feet or something. and change the Earth's axis by 10 inches. Canadian Nuclear Laboratory, Canadian Commercial Corporation, signs another letter of understanding with another vulnerable country. Oh, jeez. They always look the same, don't they? No matter which country it is. They got pictures of that right on their headboard on their bed right now as you talk. Look, honey. Look, kids. Look how important mommy and daddy are. They're special. The Chalk River. Chalk River's got 1 million tons buried at the surface. Not buried, just they stacked it up like a bonfire and then they put all kinds of dirt on it. They don't care, man. The Ottawa River's right there. All the snow and rain washes right straight into the Ottawa River. They're crazies. Nuclear power is not cost effective in Australia, says a science body. Yeah, Australia has now gone to boot, eh? Government. Decarbonize isn't a cost effective solution. The rollout is going to be cumbersome and limiting its potential to play a serious role in reducing emissions. So they got to sugarcoat it. They can't come out and criticize it honestly, right? They have to sugarcoat every facet of the criticism. Right? They have to try to mitigate it, chip away at the actual reality. Australia's centre-right opposition have been pushing nuclear as a way to achieve net zero, which is Miles Allen wrote a paper on net zero. Now, the United Nations seized up on that and has been bludgeoning humanity since. BP Oil had a campaign for carbon footprint, and now everybody got a carbon footprint. You're a scumbag. You're on this planet. You must be a scumbag. And it's worse than that. Bill Gates says all the cows got a carbon footprint because they fart. And if we don't poison the cows and make them stop farting, then bye-bye planet Earth. This is the crazy statement. So, because a lot of people eat meat, right? It's a good way to get at the meat so you can poison it. And now they got it built into the draft of all the UN signature idiot countries. Cisco. Sweden's nuclear revolution. Small modular reactors. How are you going to build small modular reactors? You don't have an application into the Swedish regulatory agencies. You don't have a supply chain. You don't have the manpower. You don't even have an application into the regulatory agency for a license with a design. And so we're seeing all of this narrative, and everybody's saying you better buy stocks. Guess what's going on? It's rinse and repeat every 2 to 3 weeks, right? There you go. That's a better screen, actually. Black was better. South Korea and Sweden got another scam. They're working in tandem with NuScale, I believe it is. Don't quote me off the top of my head, but the Shimane 2 reactor restarted after 13 years of being offline, and it's located no less than where they have a lot of major earthquakes. I think that's them there, is it? Hang on a second, I forget now. Yeah, the Shimane, that's it. So they're right here. And so they have all kinds of earthquakes right here. Right? Major recent this year, major earthquakes there. And the Chikawa prefecture just up right there. In January the 1st had a friggin' 3,000, 4,000 year old fault line let go that they're still devastated by. I get a little D over here in the corner somewhere. I screwed up something, did I? What else is new? So 560 fuel assemblies are 1,800 pounds each. This is a £1 million or something, right? 1,800,000 or something. Syria's Basra flees to Russia. Oh man, that's really something, isn't it? So, Syria's been under siege since Fukushima. Same as Lebanon, right? And that was a distraction to try to get Fukushima into the news cycle. They love using war for all kinds of stuff to get the media to get you focused somewhere else instead of on what the real issues are, right? So this is an Israeli-American thing apparently. They're trying to cut off. There's been a long time in the working. Now the big problem that I'm seeing developed is Iran says they're going to strike Israel back. And not gentle like before either. And they're going to take out their infrastructure, their electricity, their water, their marine docking areas and places like that, no doubt. And these missiles they're using are supersonic, and Israel doesn't have a defense against it. But they do have Britain, France, and other countries. I would imagine United Nations, who created them in the first place. One of the creators will contribute to their defenses, but they can't stop these missiles coming in. Israel allegedly got over 60 nuclear weapons. They also got biological chemical weapons too. And so it's their proxies now that have taken out the Syria government. The major bank, the central bank, has been looted as of this morning. We've seen that footage. People coming out with sacks, like plastic sacks of cash, probably $500,000, $1 million in a sack. All they can carry. Just running in every direction coming out of the bank. And then their homes, their mansions have been raided. And the brother of the president, the rebels that went through that this morning, I caught some of that stuff. Underground was these huge tunnels with railway tracks to transport something heavy, most likely gold, right? And they had a bunch of rooms in the tunnels, the secret tunnels under these facilities, full of briefcases, no doubt, gold and huge safes. This is devastating because we know Iran is going to hit Israel, and Israel can't stop it. And there's a bigger issue with this, right? Because Israel's pretty stupid, right? They're more than likely to use nuclear weapons in retaliation. And so it's going to happen. That's either going to happen when Iran hits Israel back, or because we see Zelensky and Trump and Prince William, all kinds of leaders, Macron, everybody else in France, at the Basilica, which was just reopened after a major fire damage repair that took many years. It's a very important building, apparently, to these elites. They showed up for the opening, which is quite prestigious, right? They get all the world leaders showing up for that. But that was a chance for them to get together. Trump had met with Benjamin Netanyahu, his wife, and his youngest son. His youngest son, when he was 15 years old, had won contest for being able to recite the Torah and the Talmud off his head, to recite any verse at the top of his head. And so that's Benjamin Netanyahu's child, was able to recite, which is justification for crimes they commit, right? Is verses from the Torah and the Talmud. They use that as justification to their own country. They don't care about anybody else. And so Benjamin Netanyahu obviously was using him as a weapon to justify, and he's aligned himself with the ultra-orthodox, I can't even pronounce words. Ultra-orthodox, my goodness, I can't even say that. That's not a bad thing, because I've been doing this for so long. Ultra-orthodox Jews, they're headbangers, right? They only read the Torah and the Talmud. They're very dangerous people, right? They're crazies. They live in a 2,000-year-old mindset, and they don't care about any other books or anything else. Just what these two books. So you got all these different religions on the planet. What's to make one any different than the other, right? Everybody's convinced that the real God, as far as I can tell, is water. It's in contact with everything and everybody all the time. And if it's got a conscience, and scientists claims it does, and they've been like, if you pray to water, if you tell water, you're wonderful and I really appreciate you, you'll change the structure. Water changes structure. Like a cat will purr. Oh, you're some good cat today. And the cat will start purring. It recognizes that tone of your voice. Water apparently does that too. And structured water made plants grow made them mature 1/3 sooner. With 3 times more foliage, or with 30% more foliage and 30% more fruit. By using structured water. That's what we're designed to drink and consume, structured water and shower in and wash our clothing in and do our dishes and everything else. So structured water. Structured water is really important. And when you use chemicals, electrolysis on water, you change the structure. Nuclear explosions were known to change the structure of the water within 1,800 miles circumference. So within 1,800 miles of a nuclear bomb, the structure of the water would change to non-structured water. Scientists don't know why it does that, but they do know how to change it back. And water, of course, without water, nothing exists. None of us exist. Right? We can't have 8 million species without water. Can't have oxygen without water. Nuclear danger looms in the Middle East after Syria's collapse. Well, they didn't have nuclear, but the real danger is Iran and Iraq and Israel. Iran's going to hit Israel. Israel got a lot of big players on their sides. Right? They got the United States, they got France. Iran's got China and Russia. Israel's is adamant that they're going to escalate it. Iran is tired of being isolated through land, sea, and air embargoes, and like North Korea, which was captured by the Japanese for 50 years before Pearl Harbor, and then was ostracized now for 74 years by UN. Right, the first declaration of war UN ever done was against, as they call it, a police action, but it was clearly a war of North Korea. So North Korea has been in slavitude for 120 years, isolated. And when you do that to a society where you isolate them from the world and vilify them and demonize them perpetually in Hollywood and medias, everywhere else, cartoons, you name it, right? You're manifesting a boogeyman that normally could never exist, right? And going along with that narrative, like we burned down every building in North Korea for United Nations did with napalm. Like the crimes against humanity and the victims they committed, you got to realize they were in servitude to the Japanese for 50 years, isolated and in slavery, and then they still got incredible war crimes against them by North Korea against the Japanese. The Japanese done to the North Koreans women was just unbelievable. My goodness. And then to have UN come in immediately now, Japan's out, United Nations shows up and flattens the entire country. Just wipes out the whole infrastructure, every building, every community was napalmed. Every city, every village. It was really something what they done to it. United Nations fired more munitions at North Korea than was used in the entire World War I war in just this one little tiny spot, trying to suppress them and break their wills. I mean, we can't have a future with these entities constantly destroying the biosphere and the ecosystem, right? There is no future. And there's no way to dispose of them without the world using their voice. And that's all I got. We live in a time where if the world was to rise up in unison, because we live in that world now, right? Where everybody has a camera, and if you got 100 million people coming out and calling somebody a piece of shit, they're not going to be getting any support. They're not going to be looking for it. Nuclear energy is not the savior. Some people say it is. Well, it's not some people. It's the pro-nuclear organized community. The pro-nuclear community is hideously organized. I guess we're data centers and Bitcoin mining operations are sucking the electrical grid. A lot of the Bitcoin is illegally tapped into the grid, right? With the latent power companies participating in that. A new study for the Australian Premier Science Agency indicates nuclear energy is a costly, time-consuming, stupid, idiotic, moron idea. Nuclear power remains the key. Then the next story, nuclear power is the key to achieving long-term emission goals. If it was, why is it 660 gigawatts of solar power this year and no new nuclear coming to the grid, right? They lost so much reactors went out of business that any new reactors built didn't bump up the total capacity of nuclear. And we're almost through this. Wabigo Lake Ojibwe Nation, English, to lead long-term nuclear waste management. This is a good story. We'll get to it first thing tomorrow night. And the native community said there will be no nuclear waste management deep geological repository on our land. Right? They stabbed us in the back over and over and over, and suggesting that we agreed to have one is simply not true, and we're not going to sit here and let that happen anymore. That was quite the interesting statement. We're going to cover that tomorrow night, because I food-barred the whole night trying to get through the degenerate International Atomic Energy Agency's propaganda, which is always a blast. What have I got done here? Because when you're looking, I'm looking at one screen and then I'm looking at another screen, which is a really complicated screen. Bear with me. So the poll tonight is Raphael Grossi, who's been caught at a lot of universities sniffing bicycle seats. That's the truth. I didn't make that up. That's a real picture. Should the International Atomic Energy Agency be designated a terrorist organization for asserting that Fukushima never emitted any radiation? And by the time you get through my video, if you're just joining us and you're going to watch it later, you will see I got an awful lot of persuasion on my side, and they got none on theirs. Except for Raphael. There's lots of footage of them out there sniffing bicycle seats too. It's not like that's a real story. That's a real picture. I didn't fake that. I don't stoop like that. Okay. I got a bit of class. Yeah, well, you don't have to believe me, but it's true. I got a bit of class. I is what I is, and I ain't what I ain't. It was so hard to get my 2-hour show in tonight. Like I didn't want to do a show tonight. I was just like, I'm burnt out. I'm busted up. I've been working today, and I shouldn't have. I should wait for another week. I'm gonna close it up with a song. Close it up with a song from James Lucid, I think. He does a lot of anti-nuclear music. I don't know if you ever heard of him. But first, we got to close La Pole. I got me a poll. It's about the International Atomic Energy Agency. Should the degenerate the terrorist International Atomic Energy Agency be designated a terrorist organization for asserting Fukushima never emitted any radiation. I know, right? And so yes, they should be designated the terrorist organization. Hello everybody. Hi everybody. Thank you. Yeah, let's hear Calm Down Charlie. Maybe I can get it to work this time. Hi everybody. Thank you everybody. Here we go. Let's play Calm Down Charlie. I agree. Thank you for that request. Because I was going to play James' most recent song. I really liked that one we played last night. I didn't screw it up last night, right? Yeah, I'm on the ball. Or the nuclear industry was slacking. Let's try it again tonight. Here's Calm Down Charlie. It's about a troll that's been stalking us from the nuclear industry from Japan for over a decade. One giant pain in the arse, this guy. Here's Calm Down Charlie. This is one of James Lucid's earlier songs. You'll see him in the comments section. You go over listening. He's got about over 180 songs now. Anti-nuclear songs. All kinds of genres. It's amazing what that man has been able to do in such a short period of time. And he's about to pass me in subscribers. It's crazy. In such a short time, eh? Here we go. Have a great night.
In the Tokyo Bureau, swirling smoke and neon beams. Chicago division, fueled by heated dreams. Calm down, Charlie calls in, voice smooth as silk. Says, Dana, you're dreaming, don't cry over spilt milk. On Dana Durnford show, the chatter's turning wild, but Charlie shoots it down with that cool cat style. Unit 3's no killer, no harm to see life. He chuckles in the static, cuts through the strife. Oh, calm down, Charlie, with his nuclear charm. He says starfish are just fine, there's no alarm. His words dance on airwaves with a confident glow. Calm down, Charlie steals the whole radio show. With a snap and a grin, Charlie's voice so clear scatters the dread, dispels all the fear. Mux didn't hurt, he croons with a sigh. Science is for thinkers, not a whim or lie. Though Dana and the crowd may shout and roar, Charlie's unfazed, he's heard it all before. His swinging rationale, like a soothing song, says, hold on to logic, we gotta stay strong. Oh, calm down, Charlie, with his nuclear charm. He says starfish are just fine, there's no alarm. His words dance on airwaves with a confident glow. Calm down, Charlie steals the whole radio show.